Our expectation is for any of our rehab, can we rehab that unit in 72 hours? And more times than not, we are. It is a huge competitive advantage. You diminish things like vacancy. Most people just look at the cost, but you're not considering the vacancy cost as well. And then you got to be able to list it, and then you got to be able to rent it. There's just a ton of different factors that you got to think about when you're rehabbing apartment complexes. How to turn a unit in 72 hours. You know, I've been asked this question a lot, and most of the time when I talk about repositioning a property and, you know, rehabbing 100 plus units per month, every month for the last 3 years, you know, people look at our cost and like, man, I can't believe you can rehab units at that cost. How does your gold standard turn, where we literally demo everything, put in brand new everything from kitchen to floor into bathroom, usually doing it around $15,000 a unit. I can't believe you get that cost. What I want to talk about in this video is the most important thing, and it's not cost, it's actually speed. You know, the speed of the repositioning, people don't care about as much. And I learned when I had a third-party management company that going slow when you're repositioning and rehabbing a 100-unit apartment complex kills you. Your burn rate is so high. Burn rate being how much money you're sticking into the property over the cash flow. When I built my company, one of the things I wanted to figure out is how fast can we rehab these units? And it didn't happen right away, but today, more times than not, our expectation is for any of our rehab, right, from silver, elite to gold standard, can we rehab that unit in 72 hours? And more times than not, we are. So it is a huge competitive advantage because you eliminate or you diminish things like vacancy, right? If it takes you 45 days to rehab a unit, most people just look at the cost, but you're not considering the vacancy cost as well. And then you got to be able to list it, and then you got to be able to rent it. There's just a ton of different factors that you got to think about when you're rehabbing apartment complexes. So how do we do it in 72 hours? Well, we have a step-by-step process, and it actually starts before the resident even leaves. So with our rehabs, or our leases, I should say, it's 60-day notices that we require. So when a resident puts in a 60-day notice, within 3 days, so from day 57 to day 60, we of course reach out, we try to retain them, maybe move them to a different apartment complex. But if we can't retain them and that unit is going to become vacant, it starts the clock. The very next step after the 72 hours is someone from our team is going to send and put this unit into the queue, is what we call it. So all these units move into a queue. And basically this queue signifies our operational leaders to have to go do a pre-inspection, okay? And they have 7 days to do and finish a pre-inspection. So if you're with me, this step is from day 57 to day 50. And if you don't know what a pre-inspection is because your property management company doesn't do it, a pre-inspection basically is going into the unit while the resident is still living there with a map of what, or a piece of paper, or we use an iPad, basically looking at what we're gonna have to do to rehab this unit. So let's just say you walk in and we can tell that it's gonna be a gold standard rehab. If you don't know what a gold standard is, I have a different YouTube video on this, but basically we have 4 different types of rehabs, so everything is very methodical. But we go in there and we know that the unit is just trash, right? It needs new cabinets, new flooring, new trim, new fixtures, new appliances, new bathtub, new vanity. It's just trash. Very easy for us to know what we do. We have it almost pre-filled out. We just got to change the square footages, make sure we understand how many bathrooms or bedrooms are in there, and we complete this sheet of paper. Now, I would tell you, most property management companies, when they are doing this, it's when the resident has moved out. So they're waiting another 50 days. When the resident moves out, they might take another week or 2, then they go walk into the unit, then they fill out an inspection form, then another week goes by and they call you and they'd be like, hey, you know, this is what your unit looks like. We're recommending a full gut job rehab. Can we get your approval? Once we get your approval, we're gonna go find a general contractor. Once we find a general contractor approved for this price, we'll reach back out to you. You know, this is very slow. By the time you've already approved everything and got somebody to do the job, you're 30 days vacant. Now you're just gonna hope the general contractor has time to be able to rehab your unit. And then even at their time, your property management company might say, well, we can't get those stainless steel appliances for another 2 weeks. You know, it's very possible that before you even started rehabbing your unit, 45 days is vacant. Then it might take another 2 weeks to actually rehab it. Now it's 60 days. Now you got to post it to the internet. Maybe it's another 30 days to be able to rent it. So some people look at me like, wow, like it's taking me 90 days to be able to get in when a resident moves out to rehab that unit and put a new one in. Your 90 days versus my 72 have everything to do with these processes before a resident even leaves, right? Back to my step 2. Operation leader fills out the form, it's a gold standard, goes back to the office, and they actually send it to our suppliers, right? So you might have a bunch of different suppliers. We use Lowe's Corporation. We're actually the second biggest buyer at Lowe's Corporation. First, by the way, is Chicago Housing. So we're a huge player. And we've negotiated not only great prices, but as I've said earlier in this video, everything is about speed. So for us, we want them to be able to pick our over 150 different SKUs, right? Different DPCIs, different items that go into our gold standard rehab. And they do. So we send in the form and they know exactly the kind of flooring, the exact kind of trim, the exact kind of cabinets, the exact kind of lighting, all of it, right? Over 150 different SKUs. They palletize it for us and they hold it in their back room. This is huge, guys, because think of how long it would take a general contractor, you, a property management company, to go pick 150 different things that you want. For me, every time I take over an apartment complex, right? If it's a 60-unit apartment complex, I might see 50 different unit styles. And to me, that tells me that the owner was a Menards special owner, meaning that as soon as the tenant moved out and he wanted to rehab it, he's going to Menards and he's seeing what's on special, he's buying that, and then he's bringing it to his unit. All that takes time. Not for us. We have a set standard of material that we are going to use, and we're not even the ones that have to palletize it. So Lowe's is taking care of all that. They're holding it for us. Meanwhile, I said step 2 was to send that in by day 50. So we're 10 days into a 60-day notice. Step number 3 is our leasing team now has 5 days to post the unit. So they're getting this pre-inspection report. And I'm typically buying 100+ unit apartment complexes. This is a little harder when I had smaller, and trust me, I had a lot of, I think I still own over 50 duplexes, a lot of smaller properties. But if you have a bigger apartment, you know, 8 units or more, you should have a unit that's already rehabbed. So now you can use the unit that is already rehabbed and you can post those similar pictures, right? And you can get that posted 45 days, at least that's our goal, before it's actually vacant. Even though it doesn't look like that yet, it's gonna look identical, right? Because you're using, again, this is the power of not a Menards special, by using the same flooring, the same trim, the same fixtures. Your leasing team understands exactly what a gold standard is at this apartment complex. You can use those pictures and you can start advertising it. As long as you follow through and it looks identical or as close as possible to that other unit. So our step 3 after all that work is now we literally get it posted. This video would be forever if I go through all 18 steps, so I'm gonna speed up a little bit, right? We're at day 45. Well, let's just speed up. We have a couple more steps in between, but let's just speed up to the day the resident moves out. So when the resident moves out, they have to move out at noon, right? Our teams are notified. And at my company right now, we have 22 turn teams. But when I was small, I only had 1. It's a team of 3 with a crew captain, a rental tech 2, and a rental tech 1. They all know exactly what to do in a gold standard turn, and they all have different things within their job responsibilities that they have to execute on for quality and for speed. They're there at 12:01. Most importantly, the Lowe's shipment is there at 12:01. So you can partner with suppliers, right? You can either go get it or you can have your supplier deliver it. At our company, our suppliers deliver it. So the pallet is there ready to go. So we have now the pallet, the resident has moved out. The first thing the crew captain does, they look through everything that's supposed to be there on that pallet. And if it's not there, they call right away. And that's important because a lot of jobs get slowed down, right? When you're missing, one thing. Maybe you got cut short on trim. Maybe you got cut short on a light fixture. Making sure you have all the materials there so your team can work efficiently without stopping is huge. So it's the first thing that the crew captain does. Then obviously the crew captain sets goals for the Rental Tech 1 and the Rental Tech 2. A Rental Tech 1 is the most inexperienced person on the team. So they're doing things like demo right away, ripping up all the old carpet and the trim, getting it all put aside, and then starting to work on flooring. So they're gonna do things like that. A Rental Tech 2 is gonna go to the bathroom right away. They're gonna do things a little bit more complicated, like replace the toilet, replace the shower head, replace the bathtub, the vanity. That stuff is a little bit more complicated. And we're all about energy efficiency, so we are typically replacing a lot of toilets and a lot of shower heads and a lot of bathtubs and a lot of light fixtures. So he's gonna be working on that. And then the crew captain, you know, not only is he giving these guys goals, this is when demo should be done, this is when the flooring should be laid in the living room, you know, this is when the bathtub should be done, but then he's starting on the more intricate stuff. Maybe he's swapping out the electrical stuff. He's probably putting the cabinets up. He's jumping in and helping if one of the teammates falls behind, or typically in our company, because we're scaling so quickly, he's probably training the new guy. So I would say this step on how you get started, right? I find a lot of times a resident moves out and most people are not turning that unit for 2 or 3 days. Like, we are literally there the minute that they move out. And then we've created these very, very efficient, repeatable processes. So if you're not using the same employees, the same general contractor, you gotta re-communicate all these things. So one thing that really helps our speed is this Rental Tech 1 knows this is the fastest way to rip out floor, and this is the fastest way to put in floor. Not the way you think you should. This is our best practice that we've trained you on, that we've done a lot of study on, and this is the way that you need to put in the floor. More than that, we are now going to hold you accountable to a time goal on things like the living room and the bedroom. So there's leadership and there's driving of results, but most of all, we like to do the same thing, this repeatable process over and over and over again, which drives so much efficiency. And we do other things like maybe painting overnight or cleaning overnight. Like, how do we become a 24/7, you know, operations? There's a lot of time early in the morning or late at night that you can get things done that won't disrupt the other residents sleeping, right? Nobody is going to tell you that you're making too much noise while you're painting or when you're cleaning. So you can just think about the different ways to rehab a unit and when can you do each one of those things. Like, you don't want to be hanging cabinets at 9 o'clock at night. That'd be a disruption to the rest of the apartment complex. So we've really just thought about, when do we do things, who should do it, did we research the very best way to put in floor, now how do we make sure all of our team is put in floor that exact way, time goals, and then the last thing we do is bonuses. You know, we want to make sure that when our teams hit their speed goals, you know, starting with the crew captain, Rental Tech 2, and then the Rental Tech 1, there's a bonus involved per month. If you hit all of your speed goal, you can get X. If you hit all of your quality goal, by the way, you should measure every single rehab by quality. And the easiest way to do that is when a resident moves in, did they notate anything that needs to be fixed? Oh, there's a scratch in the trim. Can you come back and fix this? You know, when you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on each rehab unit, or for me, over $1 million a month on rehabs, it's very important that the resident walks in and is very satisfied by the look and the feel and the quality. So if you have to go back and fix trim, that costs money, but it also costs you reputation. We put a very high bar. As a team, you probably are turning 2 minimum units per week, maybe 3. And if you go the entire month with no quality issues measured by the resident moving in, then that would be another part of your bonus. And then we also have a third part of this, which is seamless. We want to make sure that while we're rehabbing a unit, there was nothing affecting the seamlessness, meaning that you weren't swinging a hammer again at 9 o'clock at night. You weren't throwing all your trash in the flower beds. You weren't leaving your trash in the hallway, or the hallway is really dirty for the rest of the residents. So we also score them on seamlessness. So just thinking about it, like, it's not just what's in it for you. And by the way, you might be saying, well, hey, they're not my employees, so I don't bonus them. It's just a random contractor. Well, why wouldn't you bonus the contractor? Why wouldn't you say, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but why wouldn't you say something like, hey, I'll give you an extra $500 if you can get this done when you said you could get it done, so time. If the quality measured by the first person, if the residents love it and there's no quality issues that I send you back to, and if there's no disruption to the rest of the residents. If you can do that, you know, I'll give you $200 for each one of those that you meet. Today during this video, just so it's not really, really long, I wanted to share some of the key aspects of how we do this so quickly. And, you know, to summarize, number one, a big part of it is what do you do or what do your processes look like before the resident even leaves? Number two, what does your suppliers look like, right? Can you use your suppliers to be able to cut down on the labor of picking things or grabbing things and palletizing and getting it ready? Another huge crucial step is, do you have your guys ready when the resident leaves? Like, are they ready to go? Are they lined up to get started? And another big step on top of that is, have you used that team before, right? Are they your employees, or is it a general contractor that you have used before, so that they know the exact same steps that they've done for you before? They know your expectation on quality, they know your expectation on speed, they know your expectation on what the unit should even look like. So I think that's underrated, and that's a really big deal. Lastly, I hope you took away the fact that within the turn themselves, you know, being able to find win-win situations like bonusing for the things that you want, having somebody drive time goals individually for the team. If you're building your own team, making sure that each one of those team members is responsible for a different level of skill set or difficulty. And, you know, we didn't just go from one team to 22 overnight. You know, a lot of Rental Tech 1s have become Rental Tech 2s. A lot of Rental Tech 2s have become crew captains. So I think depending on the speed of your scale and how many teams you want to build out, it's not that hard if those processes are put in place and you slowly add employees. If you don't want to do that and you want to stay relatively small, that's okay too. I would encourage you to try to use the same general contractor. You train them on your expectations, you bonus them when you do well, you give them feedback when they don't, and then every single rehab after that becomes easier and easier. That's a few different nuggets that I hope you appreciate of how we're able to turn units in 72 hours. You know, we are obviously doing a lot of scale, so there might be advantages that I have today that allows us to be able to do those. But even if you can't turn them as quick as us, or you don't have the scale that we have, I'm sure that how many ever days it's taking you today, 60 days, 90 days, there's some things in this video that you can apply to your own situation that would cut down a few days, maybe even a few weeks. And that speed, right, of getting that new resident in at a higher rent will help you put a great yield or a return on investment on the cost that you're putting into the building. And once you're done with that building, hopefully either selling it, if that's your ultimate goal, at a great multiple to whatever you bought it for, or executing a refinance, getting all your money back out, refining it and rolling. And that's what I've chosen to do over and over. If you like this video, I just posted a couple other on scaling, you know, how I scale within the property management company, but also how I've scaled in an actual 114 unit apartment complex, like how I did it in 9 months. In fact, I go through things of like the appraisal as is to the subject to appraisal, and all the different layers, not just rehab, by the way, landscaping, signing, branding, common area upgrades. It's all in that video. Go ahead and check it out. See you next time.